Hi, thank you. Welcome to Barrow Borough Council's Licensing Subcommittee. Prior to today's business, the appointment of chairman for 2020 to 21 is required. So could I please ask for a nomination of chair, please?
Councillor Callister.
Thank you, Councillor Seward. And is there a seconder, please? Is there a seconder for that, please, for Councillor Callister? No seconder.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Seward.
Is there a seconder for Councillor Seward? We do need to appoint a chair for the business to take place today. Is there somebody to nominate again, or?
Councillor Callister.
Councillor Seward nominate Councillor Callister. Is there a seconder? Live stream, can we just pause for 2 minutes, please, so we see some instruction as to where we go from here? Thank you. Could I have a nomination for chair, please?
Councillor Callister.
Thank you,
Seconded.
Councillor Seward, and Councillor Callister seconded. Thank you. So I'll now hand over to Councillor Callister, who will take over as chair. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of Barrow Council's Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Councillor Tony Callister and I am the chair of the Licensing Subcommittee today. May I first remind everybody of some domestic arrangements. It is important that all participants conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. Please put your mobile phone on silent. Participants must ensure that microphones are muted throughout the meeting. If you wish to speak, you must raise your hand via the raise hand facility in Zoom and only unmute your microphone when invited to speak. Please do not interrupt other speakers. Members are reminded that they should not have alternative communication lines open, and if they are contacted by a third party during the application, you should bring this to my attention as soon as possible. If members do lose connection to the meeting, we will adjourn for up to 10 minutes to assist them in reconnecting. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being broadcast live to the internet. To vote on matters, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to manage this process. At this point, members will be requested to unmute their microphones. After a brief pause, a mover and seconder will be requested and a roll call of members will be undertaken. Please reply with "I vote for," "against," "abstain," then remute your microphone. These are the formalities, members. Let's proceed with today's business, but I would like to reiterate that speakers' representations from the public will have 5 minutes maximum presentation time. And can I give a strong reminder of inappropriate or disruptive behaviour? I will give one warning, and should it continue, I'll request that you are removed from the meeting. Thank you very much. So we move into the agenda. Part 1, we've appointed the chairman. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence, attendance of substitute members.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just do a roll call of everybody present, please? Councillor Callister.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Seward.
Present.
Mr Graham Barker, Public Protection Manager.
Present.
Catherine Benson, Licensing Officer.
Present.
Jane Holden, Principal Legal Officer and Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Present.
And Paul O'Donnell, the Council's Legal Representative.
Present.
Thank you, that's everybody.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 3, urgent items. To note any items which the chairman considers to be of an urgent nature. That's nil. 4, delegations. To receive notice from members who may wish to move any delegated matter, non-delegated, and which will be decided by a majority of members present and voting at the meeting. Number 5, admission of public and press. To reiterate again, people, we are on live stream. Number 6, declarations of interest. To receive declarations by members and or co-optees of interest in respect of items on the agenda. Members are that in accordance with the revised code of conduct, they are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other registrable interests which may not have already been declared in the council's register of interests. Number 7, confirmation of minutes. Can we take the minutes from the 5th of December 2019 as a true record, please?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Number 8, public participation. Any member of the public who wishes to speak, we have a process to go through, and as I said, you will have 5 minutes to speak. We move now into decision. Agenda item 9, I call on the licensing officer. Just prior to the licensing officer, 4 members of the public, just to go through the protocols of the meeting. This report will be, as other reports, will be presented by the licensing officer. Following that report, the applicant then will make their representations. Following that, the authority, police, etc., they will make representations, and then there will be public representations following that. Members then will have the opportunity to ask questions of the authorities, public recommendations, applicant representations, and of course, the licensing officer's report. Following a position where the members are comfortable with the questions that they've asked, we will then adjourn for the committee to make decision. Following that decision, we will then come back live into the stream and make the position known. Okay, thank you. Ms Benson?
Thanks, Tony. I'm going to invite all the members of the representations into the meeting now,
Yeah,
so they can hear it from the start. And whether you want to go through the procedure just to reiterate their speaking time and things like that with them.
right, okay, I will do.
So I'll invite them all in now. So we've got Cumbria Constabulary, we've got the applicant, and we've got a number of objectors.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just admit them now.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Callister, chair of the meeting today. Just to go through some protocols, the first report and all the reports will be presented by the licensing officer. Following that report, the applicant will then make representations. Then it's the authority to make representations. Public will then make representations, and then it'll be a position for members to ask questions of those presentations prior. Once members are happy with the questions that they've asked, we will then adjourn for the committee to make a decision. Following that decision, we will make the decision known moving forward. I would like to reiterate again, 5 minutes maximum presentation time, and a reminder of inappropriate or disruptive behaviour. I will give one warning, and should it continue, I'll request that you are removed from the meeting. Could I ask the Chief Licensing Officer to make a report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out details of an application to vary a premises licence under section 34(1) of the Licensing Act 2003 for Manhattans at 45 to 53 Cavendish Street, Barrow-in-Furness. The applicant is Delina Jones. The application is a subject of 6 valid representations, therefore a hearing is required. The applicant and the party making the representations have been notified of the hearing. Appendix 1 to this report provides details of this application. It is recommended that Licensing Subcommittee determine whether the application, in accordance with the Guide to Licensing Subcommittee Hearings Procedure, to vary the licence should be granted with or without changes or conditions, or refused based on the information in this report and as presented at the hearing. The supply of alcohol, provision of regulated entertainment and the provision of late night refreshment are licensable activities under section 1 of the Licensing Act 2003. Authorisation from the Council in its role as a licensing authority is required in order to carry on any of these activities at premises within the borough. The Licensing Act 2003 provides a clear focus on the promotion of 4 statutory licensing objectives, which must be addressed when licensing functions are undertaken. The licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Each objective is of equal importance. There are no other statutory licensing objectives, so that the promotion of the 4 objectives is a paramount consideration at all times. Where a premises licence holder wishes to amend the licence, the 2003 Act in most cases permits an application to vary to be made rather than requiring a new application for a premises licence. With regards to the application, on the 10th of August 2020, under section 34(1) of the Act, an application was made to the Licensing Authority by Delina Jones in relation to premises Manhattans of 45 to 53 Cavendish Street in Barrow. The applicant is seeking to vary their hours for supply of alcohol, recorded music, performances of dance to add an extra hour Friday and Saturday. And the opening hours are also therefore being updated with some seasonal variations. A copy of the existing licence is attached to Appendix 2. And on page 9 of the papers, tabulated summarises the variation requested and the existing provisions. Members can only lawfully consider the matters which are being requested as part of the variation application. It is not within the Licensing Subcommittee's remit to consider their current licence permissions. A statutory consultation has taken place where responsible authorities and the public can make representations. Section 18(3) of the Act states that where relevant representations are made, the authority must hold a hearing to consider them, unless the authority, the applicant, and each person who has made representations agree that a hearing is unnecessary. The licensing authority has received relevant representations and therefore has given notice of the hearing to the applicant and those persons who have made relevant representations. There has been one representation from a responsible authority, and on the 1st of September 2020, Cumbria Police made a representation objecting to the grant of the variation application. A copy of the full representation is at Appendix 3. The content of the representation, the concerns raised are around the number of crimes in and around the location, serious offences committed in and around the location, and the ability for the police to respond to incidents. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, and public safety. There has been no other representations from responsible authorities. There has been 5 representations from other parties, which are summarised on page 11. At Appendix 4, a representation has been received from Mr. Simon Crompton, part of the Lounge Group, and the concerns raised around violent incidents, alcohol intoxication after 1:30 AM, and alcohol-related problems in the area. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, public safety, and prevention of crime and disorder. At Appendix 5, Mr. Brian White, on behalf of Coastal Cars and the taxi trade, has raised concerns around visible disorder, alcohol-related social, domestic and violence, amount of incidents unreported and unseen, the rise in noise, drink and drugs, extended hours could leave the public stranded in town. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and prevention of public nuisance. Appendix 6 is a representation from Mr. Martin Bell, who is a local taxi driver, and he has raised concerns around the lack of infrastructure to take people home, increased risk of noise and disturbance, and pressure on the police. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and prevention of crime and disorder. Appendix 7 is a representation from Mr. Jonathan Harrison, who is a street angel, and he has raised concerns around difficulties in policing the situations on Cavendish Street, and this is in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety. And the final representation is from the BBCR, who have raised concerns around increased pressure on policing, encourage late night drinking and drunken behaviour, effect on the surrounding area, and public order issues. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and prevention of public nuisance. For members' information, on page 12, there is a table which summarises nearby licensed premises and their licensable hours for supply of alcohol on the premises. When considering applications, the licensing authority will have regard to the Licensing Act and licensing objectives, government guidance issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, any supporting regulations, and the statement of licensing policy. The subcommittee must ensure that all licensing decisions have a direct relationship to the promotion of one or more of the licensing objectives. Every application should be considered on its merits, and there must not be a blanket policy to the extent that it is applied so rigidly that an exercise of discretion in each individual case is precluded. Applications must be considered with regard to the principles of fair process and the Human Rights Act. There is some additional guidance available at appendices 9, 10, 11 and 12. The options available to members are to grant the application to vary the licence for Manhattans as applied for, to grant the application to vary the licence for Manhattans with additional conditions and/or changes as deemed appropriate, taking into account Chapter 10 of the statutory guidance, conditions attached to premises licences and club premises certificates, or they can refuse the application to vary the licence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the applicant Mr. Simon Crompton to make his representations.
Chair, the applicant is Zelina Jones.
Sorry, I do apologise. Zelina Jones, please could you make your representations as the applicant? Do apologise.
Zelina, we can't hear you.
Try again. Is that any better? Yes. Thank you. We've looked into the idea before COVID and all the restrictions this relates to, and the application has previously been discussed with licensing and the police, and we were looking at ideas of how to reduce the crime in the area between 4 and 5 a.m, which is why we're wanting to do the 5 o'clock extension, so that we do, instead of an en masse leaving of all venues at 4 o'clock in the street, that they will filter out more slowly and more orderly, supervised by door staff and myself until 5 a.m. And then the idea of the takeaway came as well, which is another application. We were the first premise to close before the COVID on the 15th of the 3rd, due to the mixing of people and we wanted to put the safety of staff and customers before all else. I have worked in this trade for 30 years now. I've always tried to keep good relations with police and licensing. I did work on Cornwallis Street and the venues all closed at 2 a.m. This caused a massive problem on the street and it became nationally known as the Gaza Strip. Visible police presence has continually reduced over the last 4 years, and police now leave the street at 02:45 a.m. every Saturday, if they're there on a Friday, sometimes earlier, and they take the street angels and they do not return unless we phone them out. This is obviously a funding problem with the police, but at 4 o'clock when our venues are empty, the incidents myself and door staff have to deal with might be greatly reduced if they're inside the premises where we have full CCTV coverage and security staff. We have problems out on the street from drunks and underage people. We've helped the police. We've given 136 fake or stolen driving licenses being used fraudulently and over 60 passports in the 12 months prior to COVID. We have CCTV in all venues, and we've improved the street lighting in the back street to come on with highly visible lighting to prevent crime in the back street area. Incorrectly, Mr. Crompton has said that many incidents are after 1:30, and he has 0 incidents for police at Cloud9, which is incorrect. Bar Watch have recently put 2 people on Bar Watch because of Cloud9 incidents, so I don't understand where that came from. As a business rival with already a 4 a.m. and a 24-hour special only licence, I feel that his complaint is mainly business rivalry. And as I know, people move en masse from one venue to the other when they go out drinking. It used to be called the Rollins Street Run, and now it seems to be the railway and then onto the pub, and they move at the same time, which is why his venue empties at 1 a.m. And I would like to move Manhattans forward and try and make it a safer environment for people, especially with big firms like BAE employing outside contractors, making the town centre improvements that we're trying to make. And this is all hopefully in respect that COVID is one day a problem that we all look back on and regret, but there you go. It's not something we're trying to do at the moment. We continued with the application because nobody knows when this COVID restrictions will end. No one's a fortune teller. And as regard to taxes and the list of names, which wasn't signatures, that came with one of the complaints, I've spoken to taxi drivers and they're prepared to ensure people get safely home. They're prepared to put a butler button inside Manhattans so that people can get a ticketed, safe taxi home, and they'll ensure the staff are there available. We previously used to run Princess Zealandia, which was licensed till 6 a.m. when the town only had 226 licensed taxis in Barrow. Now they're over 400. Many taxi drivers don't want to work late hours, but many will. So I think that's their individual right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zelina. Can I now call on the police authority to make those representations, please?
Can you hear me okay? Can I be heard, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Peter Clinton, speaking on behalf of Cumbria Constabulary. The Constabulary is objecting based on the concerns that this increase will increase crime and disorder, ultimately affecting the public safety. We won't repeat what has already been provided, but we'll summarise our reasons for the objection. We have supplied the figures which are based on crimes and incidents that police have received reports for and dealt with at the premises and in the immediate vicinity. They clearly show issues with an increase in crime relating directly to the nighttime economy during the very early hours of the morning when the licensed premises are busiest. There are 129 crimes recorded as per Appendix A that we've supplied during the period between midnight and 03:59 hours during the weekend period, showing that there is disorder attributed to the nighttime economy, particularly during the early hours of Saturday and Sunday morning. After 4 AM, when the nightclub's currently shut, the crime level dramatically drops by from 42 crimes to 16 recorded crimes on a Saturday morning and 65 to 12 on a Sunday morning. Should the nightclubs remain open until 5 AM, people will be drawn to remain in the town centre later, leading to an increase in disorder after 4 AM. The crime levels will increase because of this. Not only this, but people will still be around in the town centre and dispersing right up into the later hours of the morning, potentially later than 5 AM and 7 AM. This will impact local businesses preparing to open up before shops start trading. People will be disturbed in surrounding communities with drunken revellers leaving the town centre later and later into the morning. Antisocial behaviour will be attributed to alcohol will increase. Any person who is the victim of a crime has their life impacted in the short and the long term. We have shown some of the most serious crimes occurred due to the nighttime economy. Assaults, including GBH and ABH, which we've supplied the details for in our objection document. Criminal damage to local businesses costing them money. Police officers being assaulted, carrying out their jobs, trying to keep people safe. There are too many incidents of drunken behaviour resulting in cost of public services, including the police and the ambulance service. There is cost to local residents, cost to people's health and safety, and ultimately cost to the taxpayer, whilst the nightclubs continue to take in more and more money. This completely goes against the licensing objectives in place to prevent crime and disorder and public safety. We are asking you to seriously consider the repercussions this extra hour will have on the town. The police are stretched as it is, especially with risks to public health at present. Later opening hours will be detrimental to the community and the people who protect it, stretching police resources even further. Innocent members of the public will be put at risk, which we cannot allow to happen. I am asking you to read in detail our objection documents and have it at the forefront of your minds when making a decision on the application. I cannot stress enough the enormity of concerns that this extension will have for the police. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, sir. Okay, now we move into public representations, and we do have a number. The first one, can I call on Mr. Simon Crompton?
Chair, he's just joining as far as I can see for the connection.
Thank you.
We just lost him for a second, but he's back now, I think, Chair. Chair, Councillor Hall's got his hand up. I'm not sure if it's something for now or something for after the representations.
Councillor Hall, would you like to speak?
No, it's an error thing. It was when I was muting, I pressed the wrong button.
Thank you. Simon, can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself, Simon?
Yeah, I've just unmuted it. Thanks, Tony.
Right, thank you. Are you okay to proceed?
Yes, by all means.
Thank you.
So it just had a delay logging me in, that was all.
Okay, the floor's yours.
It was just ringing up to obviously voice in person my concerns and objections to the application for a 5 a.m. licence. I have a late night venue within the town. We consciously make a decision to close at around 2 o'clock because that seems to be the time when the behaviour of individuals and the consumption of alcohol gets to a level where we deem that to be enough. Every weekend we watch the behaviour descend in a certain part of the town, and I felt I had to object based on what we already see at a 4 o'clock finish, let alone a 5 o'clock finish, in relation to public order primarily, and then secondly, the knock-on effect. We've come across this problem with a number of our employees or ex-employees, their inability to function correctly the day after. Through no fault of their own, they've gone out, had a good time, lose track of time, under the influence of drink, turn up late for work. I've had that with a number of the businesses which I operate, and we've had to remove staff because of that. And I just think it would further add to this problem. And I don't see the need for a 5 a.m. licence in Barrow-in-Furness. We're not a university town. We're not a city. We already have a well-established existing problem with drink-related violence, social disorder within the town centre. And I just think it would further add to it. Not only that, a kick-out time of 5 o'clock, based on the current rate that people hang about the town centre after the closing, you're going to potentially get interaction now with people going to work. And I just think it's going to cause a problem which we don't need.
Simon, is that you finished?
Yes, at the moment, Tony, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, can I now move and ask Mr. Brian White on behalf of Coastal Cars, the taxi trade, to make his presentation?
He's not in attendance, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could I move on and ask Mr. Martin Bell, taxi driver, to make representations?
Yep, sorry, couldn't find the mute button. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Martin.
I won't repeat what I already put in the text, other than I'm a taxi driver that works from midnight onwards. I usually work the rank on a weekend, and we've had a number of incidents that go on. But when the police leave at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, there are a number of incidents. I've spoken with many of the independent rank drivers that work on the rank, and most of them are not prepared to. Whenever the nightclub's shut, it's plus 1 hour before people go home. So if they shut at 4 o'clock, it's getting towards 5 o'clock before the full dispersal in the centre. None of us are really prepared to work to them hours, which means that there's going to be a lot of people left hanging around in the town centre that would normally be able to get home. There are some drivers that will work, there always will be, but the bulk of drivers have aired the opinion that they don't want to work till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's really all I've got to add to that, to be honest, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Martin. Thank you. Could I now call on Mr. Jonathan Harrison, Street Angel?
He's not in attendance, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could I now call on the BBCR? Could I ask what the BBCR is, please, if that's possible?
Yeah, we're a group of business people based in Barrow that have come together for various, we'll say, issues that are arisen in the town, and we speak as one voice. There's 84 members currently.
Thank you very much there, Edward. You can now begin on your presentation.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I've got the greatest respect for Ricky and Manhattans as a club in general. The issue that our members have has been reiterated by the police and various other people in the town, which is we're not a city. You know, there's no real reasons to stay open until 5 a.m. in the morning. As you already see at the moment, most of the younger generation are sitting home till 11, sometimes 12 o'clock at night, drinking at home because it's cheaper, and then going out for the last couple of hours. If you make this a 5 a.m. licence, you're going to end up with even a worse situation where they're coming out at 1 and 2 in the morning because they didn't get the last 3 hours in the pub. Now it seems to be the only venue looking at the legislative paper the council supplied to be applying for the 5 a.m. license. You're going to congregate everybody in that particular area, which then becomes a nightmare for everybody else in that area. Not only other businesses, but you're talking, as has been reiterated during this conversation, people going to work in that area. And the police have said again, they have major concerns with it. The BDCR members have got major concerns with it being congregated in such a small area, it being the only venue of its type in that area. From my point of view, I think we're going down a slippery path, because if you allow this license, as I say, with the greatest respect to the club, etc., if you allow this license, all that's going to happen is everybody's going to funnel in that area, whether they in a position financially or physically to have a drink or not. They're all going to head to that one area because they know that, the place is open. Where currently at the moment, there is a number of venues. Some are closing, as Mr. Crompton, I think it was said, at 2 a.m. A lot of the pubs are staying up till midnight. I really don't see reason for allowing a 5 a.m. license in the town, because I say we are a town, we're not a city. If we're a city, it would be a completely different kettle of fish. But we're not. We're a town. I think that's been lost in the application.
Is that your representation now, Mr. Edward?
It is at the moment, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, being no further representations from the public, I'll now put it out to members to ask any questions of what they've heard prior to this point. Any questions from members?
Councillor Hall and Councillor Seward, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hall?
Yeah, just like that, the appellant, sorry, the licensee. What's a lot of places with these late licenses have a cut-off time for admission. Is there a cut-off time currently, or do they allow admission right up to 4 o'clock?
You can unmute yourself, Zelina, please. Oh, unmute me.
Hello.
Thank you.
Currently, we don't allow admission after 3:40 a.m. for the 4 o'clock licence.
Okay. And have you considered, if you went for these extended hours, I mean, if you go to Glasgow and places, there's a lot of the clubs and that you're not allowed, although they've got late licenses, there's no admission after 3 o'clock, etc. And that obviously prevents a lot of the issues. Is that something you've looked at?
Yeah, we discussed it when I spoke to the police officers when they came round of doing a set time of 3:30, and if they're not in by then, they can't come in. So other venues empty at 4, then their customers couldn't come in and integrate with the ones we've still got.
No. Okay. So the other question I wanted to ask was, how do your staff ensure that people who are intoxicated don't gain access into the club?
Judging intoxication is not the easiest thing, but they've been doing it a lot of years. The door staff are well trained and they check everyone at the door. If they appear to be intoxicated, they don't get entry. If they become intoxicated inside, they're taken outside and made sure they either go home, a friend takes them home, or they get to a taxi rank, which is just down the street now because they can't come up on the front street.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got, Zelina, sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Seward?
Just wanted to ask Zelina, you said something about it's a form. Would you be keeping people in premises with it?
Sorry, I missed some of that.
The form system you wanted in?
Yeah, we were hoping
Get into the taxi or no?
Yeah, we're hoping that if we got the 5 o'clock, then people would stay in the premises with their ticket, book the ticket, and then when the taxi arrives, they go straight into the taxi.
Thank you.
So they wouldn't be waiting on the street. Problem.
Councillor Seward, have you finished?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll indulge as chairman. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, if I can ask a question to Zelina. Now, I presume that you would be confident in saying that there would be a number of taxi drivers that would service the premises to be able to safely get revellers away at that time in the morning?
Yeah, we've spoken to taxi firms and we've not had this problem before. There's a place to wait, a place of safety, the security staff here. So, and COVID has affected everybody, including taxis. And I understand that taxi drivers don't want to work till that time, but many do, and they want to make up for the loss of earnings that have obviously come for the last, it will be at least a year probably before a nightclub can open again, and taxis can work till that time.
That's great. Thank you very much. Just one further question there, and I presume, you know, obviously knowing how Mr. Lucas has operated over many years, and yourself, I presume you've done an analysis of an actual business that's showing the need for this amongst local revellers.
The main need is that at 4 o'clock generally now, 3 years ago it was different, we are still over 400 people that all go onto the street and mix with other venues that finish at 4 o'clock. And as somebody quite rightly said, they're hanging around sometimes till 5 o'clock in the morning on the street. Now, there are no police to police that, so either I have to police it, and some of it goes not just here, it's the takeaways down the street, it's quite a distance from the club where they hang around in groups. If they can disperse more slowly, which we've seen, we had New Year's Eve, we stayed open till 5 o'clock. The bar shut at 4:45 because that's when people stopped buying drinks, but the dispersal was much easier in comparison to Boxing Night, which shut at 4, and we had 500 people leave the premise, and we had other venues that were still full, as theatre bar, etc., all on the street, all out there for a good hour and a half. And there were 3 incidents that my door staff had to get involved with and aid the police, which they always do.
Thank you very much. And am I right in saying that you've had no objectives from anybody across the road with any of the takeaway businesses, etc.?
We've had no objections, as far as I'm aware, from any takeaways, and neither have we had any from any of the local residents. Mr. Eddie White lives on Walney, so I don't think it'll affect him really very much. But
okay, thank you very much.
The local residents haven't made any complaints either.
Okay, thank you very much for your time there. If I could ask a question of the police authority, could you confirm that if local young revellers are going out and they're letting off steam, that the usual sort of thing of a weekend, they're always going to be a percentage of antisocial behaviour?
Yeah. I think we can agree that alcohol-related antisocial behaviour is always going to be a thing. What we're wanting to prevent is this antisocial behaviour carrying on even later into the early hours of the morning. You know, Zelina said herself, we don't have the police to assist at all hours of the day. Officers who were on Cavendish Street, police in the location helping to assist with dispersals are unfortunately still have to be available for other emergencies throughout the county. There will always be issues of antisocial behaviour, and as it gets later and later, it's going to get worse because it's harder to police.
Could I ask you what your thoughts would be if there's a situation where you can actually contain revellers within an establishment to eat, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it was myself who met with Zelina and Mr. Lucas, and we did discuss it in detail. Unfortunately, they have said, you know, they can have up to 400 people in those premises at any one time. Ultimately, they're always going to have to leave. There will be issues getting people into taxis. We can't always coach people off the street. You know, they do have a right to stand there if they want to. We can't push them off Cavendish Street. it's going to be more and more difficult to get people to move on as it gets later on. There'll be less taxis as well, because you can see throughout the night less and less taxis are available.
Okay, no worries. Nothing more on that. Thank you very much. Anything else from the other two members? Members, are we happy to go into decision?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sharon, can we go
Yeah,
into
Tony,
decision, please?
Yeah, are you going into, if somebody could move to go into part 2 for decision and second it, please?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, thanks everybody. And as usual, when we take quite a considerable time to go over an application, we do go over all the details that have been presented, and I thanks everybody that's give their representations this morning. Now, the members have concluded their deliberations on this agenda item, and the subcommittee is minded to grant the application, subject to condition that there will be no admissions after 3:30 AM. Formal notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given to all parties within 5 working days. The time limit for appealing will not commence until the formal notification has been sent to all parties. Thank you very much for attending, and that concludes this agenda item. Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 10. Could I call on the licensing officer, please?
Thank you, Chair. This next report sets out details of an application to vary a premises licence under section 34(1) of the Licensing Act 2003 for Hollywood Rock Cafe of 45 to 53 Cavendish Street in Barrow. The applicant is Zelina Jones. The application is a subject of 3 valid representations, therefore a hearing is required. The applicant and the party making the representations have been notified of the hearing in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005. Appendix 1 to this report provides details of this application. It is recommended that Licensing Subcommittee determine whether the application, in accordance with the Guide to Licensing Subcommittee Hearings Procedure, to vary the licence should be granted with or without changes or conditions, or refused based on the information in this report and as presented at the hearing. The supply of alcohol, provision of regulated entertainment and provision of late night refreshment are licensable activities under section 1 of the Licensing Act 2003. Authorisation from the council in its role as a licensing authority is required in order to carry on any of these activities at premises within the borough. The Licensing Act 2003 provides a clear focus on the promotion of 4 statutory objectives which must be addressed when licensing functions are undertaken. The licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Each objective is of equal importance, and there are no other statutory licensing objectives, so that the promotion of the 4 objectives is a paramount consideration at all times. With regards to this application, on the 17th of August 2020, under section 34(1) of the Act, an application was made to the Licensing Authority by Zelina Jones in relation to premises Hollywood Rock Cafe of 45 to 53 Cavendish Street in Barrow. The applicant is seeking to vary the hours for supply of alcohol, recorded music, performances of dance, to add an extra hour Thursday through to Sunday inclusive, to vary their licence to add off sales of alcohol, to vary their hours for late night refreshment by adding an extra 2 hours Thursday through to Sunday inclusive. The opening hours are therefore being updated with some seasonal variations. And finally, there is an updated plan of the premises to incorporate a new takeaway. Pages 12 and 14 of the application contain a discrepancy in the hours for late night refreshment Monday through to Wednesday and the opening hours Monday through to Wednesday. The applicant has confirmed that no changes are being made to the existing licence for those days. A copy of the existing licence is attached at Appendix 3. And tabulated on page 129 summarises the variation requested and the existing provisions. A statutory consultation has taken place where responsible authorities and the public can make representations. Section 18(3) of the Act states that where relevant representations are made, the authority must hold a hearing to consider them, unless the authority, the applicant, and each person who has made representations agree that a hearing is unnecessary. The Licensing Authority has received relevant representations and therefore has given notice of the hearing to the applicant and those persons who have made relevant representations. There has been one representation from a responsible authority, and on the 7th of September 2020, Cumbria Police made a representation objecting to the grant of the variation application. A copy of the full representation is at Appendix 4, and the content of the representation is summarised as follows. They've raised concerns around the number of crimes in and around the location, the number of serious offences committed in and around the location, and the ability for the police to respond to incidents. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, and public safety. There has been 2 representations from other parties, which are summarised on page 131. At Appendix 5, there is a representation from Mr. Simon Crompton of the Lounge Group, raising concerns about violent incidents, alcohol intoxication after 1:30 a.m, and alcohol-related problems in the area. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, public safety, and prevention of crime and disorder. At Appendix 6, there is a representation from Mr. Brian White on behalf of Coastal Cars and the taxi trade. And he has raised concerns about visible disorder, alcohol-related social, domestic and violence, amount of incidents unreported and unseen, the rise in noise and drink and drugs. And this links into licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and prevention of public nuisance. On page 132 at 3.24, for members' information, there is a table which summarises nearby licensed premises and their licensable hours for supply of alcohol and late night refreshment on the premises. And for clarity, late night refreshment is the sale of hot food or hot drink between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. When considering applications, the licensing authority will have regard to the Licensing Act and licensing objectives, government guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, any supporting regulations, and the Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must ensure that all licensing decisions have a direct relationship to the promotion of one or more of the licensing objectives. Every application should be considered on its merits, and there must not be a blanket policy to the extent that it is applied so rigidly that an exercise of discretion in each individual case is precluded. Applications must be considered with regard to the principles of fair process and the Human Rights Act. There's further guidance available at Appendices 7, 8 and 9 and 10.
Sorry,
The
Catherine.
options.
Just, all right, it's okay, he's back.
All right, to carry on.
Yes, carry on,
Yes.
please.
The options that are available to members are to grant the application to vary the licence for Hollywood Rock Cafe as applied for, to grant the application to vary the licence for Hollywood Rock Cafe with no additional conditions and/or changes as deemed appropriate, taking into account Chapter 10 of the statutory guidance, conditions attached to premises licence and club premises certificates, or they can refuse the application to vary the licence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just say, Mr. Crompton's dropped off the meeting. I'm not sure if he's left the room or we've lost him. I'm not entirely sure, but he's not here at the moment. And I know he was down to give a representation.
Mr. White, are you able to contact Mr. Crompton?
Yeah, I will try to do so. If not, he's a member of the BBCR, so I can possibly speak on his behalf if the committee will allow it.
That's fine. Thank you very much for that. Are we happy to move on? Should we give a couple of minutes for Mr. White to contact Mr. Crompton?
Sorry, Sharon, you were on mute then.
Live stream, do you want to just adjourn just for a couple of minutes while we check that Mr. Crompton's joining? Thanks.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Now moving into the applicant representations. Could I ask that Zelina Jones makes representation, please?
Hello. With regard to Hollywood and the takeaway, we were hoping to link this with the extension from Manhattan's, obviously going to 5 o'clock. The idea being we only serve alcohol in here till 4 AM, and then the last hour is used takeaway food. No alcohol will be consumed between 4 and 5. This is to give a safe place that is monitored by security staff, cameras, management, until 5 AM when the premises is closed. Make sure everybody gets away safely. There are some, like I explained before, the lack of police presence, and they have no security staff. We feel that our customers will be safer where we can monitor any incidents and prevent any crime. That's really all I can say about Hollywood.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It's appreciated. Okay, can we move on to the police authority representations?
Can you hear me okay?
Thank you, yes.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so Cumbria Constabulary again, it's the same representations made for the previous one. Just to make clear, we're not putting representations for the takeaway side of things. That's not an issue. It's purely the hours. Because it's a different premises, I'm just going to repeat our representation of some added things. The Cumbria Constabulary is objecting based on the concerns that this will cause an increase in crime and disorder, ultimately affecting the safety of the public. We won't repeat what has already been provided, but summarise our reasons for the objection. We have supplied the figures, which are facts based on crimes and incidents that police have received reports for and dealt with at the premises and in the immediate vicinity. They clearly show issues of an increase in crime relating directly to the nighttime economy during the very early hours of the morning when the licensed premises are busiest. There are 129 crimes recorded, and you can see these in Appendix A during the period of midnight to 03:59 hours during the weekend period, showing that there is disorder attributed to the nighttime economy, particularly during the early hours of Saturday and Sunday morning. After 4 AM, when the nightclub's currently shut, the crime level dramatically drops from 42 crimes to 16 recorded crimes on a Saturday morning and 65 to 12 on a Sunday morning. Should the nightclubs remain open until 5 AM, people will be drawn to remain in the town centre later, leading to an increase in disorder after 4 AM. Crime levels will increase because of this. Not only this, but people will stay around in the town centre, dispersing right up until the later hours of the morning, potentially after 5 AM up until 7 AM. This will impact local businesses preparing to open up before shops start trading. People will be disturbed in surrounding communities with drunken revellers leaving the town centre later and later into the morning. Antisocial behaviour attributed to alcohol will increase. Any person who's the victim of a crime has their life impacted in the short and long term. We have shown some of the most serious crimes occur due to the nighttime economy, including assaults, such serious levels as GBH and ABH, as per our objection document, criminal damage to local businesses, costing them money, police officers assaulted carrying out their jobs, trying to keep people safe. There are too many incidents of drunken behaviour, resulting in cost to the public services, police and ambulance, cost to local residents, cost to people's health and safety, and cost to the taxpayer, whilst the nightclubs continue to take in more money. This completely goes against the licensing objectives in place to prevent crime and disorder and protection of public safety. We are asking you again to seriously consider the repercussions this extra hour will have on the town. The police are stretched as it is, especially with risk to public health at present. Later opening hours will be detrimental to the community and the people who protect it. Stretching police resources even further, innocent members of the public will be put at risk, which we cannot allow to happen. I'm asking you to read in detail our objection document. Again, it's based on the facts and figures of crimes, and have it at the forefront of your mind when making a decision on the application. I cannot stress enough the enormity of concerns that this extension will have for the police. And also to add to that, essentially what Hollywood is doing is herding persons into one place and keeping them there until 5 AM when they're able to leave en masse. They're not doing anything, and they haven't shown us anything that they're doing to promote the licensing objectives by allowing this, whilst we have shown with our facts and figures that the licensing objective of crime and disorder is not being upheld by them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to public representations. I note that Simon's now left the meeting, but I would like to give the opportunity to Mr. White to speak on Mr. Crompton's behalf. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that if the chair is allow it.
That's fine. The chair's allowing it. Please begin.
I will do. Basically, I just need to make two clarifications, if I may, because it was commented on the previous application. Mr. Crompton is part of the BBCR. However, due to his proximity close to the venue in question, it was agreed by the BBCR that he would represent himself on this particular instance. Obviously, due to Mr. Crompton's issues, I have spoken to Mr. Crompton and he's given me permission to speak on his behalf and asked me to do so. It purely, Mr. Crompton's views, as the same as the BBCR's views, is rung out by the police where, number one, there's enough takeaways and stuff in town and cafes, etc. There's no need to be open that time of the morning. Number two, the police have already confirmed you are basically making one particular area a hotspot because everybody will be attending that individual premises because it'll be the latest one open. And you're putting a strain on the local police force and ambulance service, etc., which we feel is unacceptable for the benefit of the town. I represent 84 companies in the town. We had a virtual meeting a couple of days ago regarding this issue, and out of the 84 members, 27 of them are in the vicinity of the area and have strongly suggested that it would be inappropriate for a council to allow this to happen because all you are basically doing is making a powder keg by allowing this many people. Because you're not just talking the people from Manhattan, you're talking the other surrounding premises, etc., all converging onto this one area. And we feel it would be very dangerous and highly irregular for this to be allowed to do by the local authority due to the policing issues that have been raised today by the Cumbria Police.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. White. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Could I now call on Mr. Brian White on behalf of Coastal Cars Taxi Trade?
He's not in attendance, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So in that case, we now move over to members. Members, do you have any questions on this application? Councillor Hall?
Yeah, it was just asked, Zelina, the changes that have been made to the Hollywood Rock with seating, etc. Is this purely a COVID-driven initiative? Is it a temporary thing, or is it permanent?
No, it's a permanent takeaway situation. It was planned before the COVID outbreak. We started discussing it and drawing up the plans. So the takeaway in itself will be part of Hollywood and accessible from Manhattan's.
Right, with the seating and that there.
Without having to go onto the street.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Deb, any questions?
I just wondered what time would you be serving takeaways and that? Serving, I'm assuming, till 5.
If we're open till 5, they'd have to order the takeaway, obviously, by about 4:30 in the morning, but they're able to sit and wait for a taxi inside. They book the.
Yeah.
Okay, have you answered that one, Zelina? Yes? Okay, thank you. Just from myself, again, if I can ask Zelina.
I think so, as much as I could.
You're just coming in and out at the moment, Zelina.
Yeah, I'm getting the odd word.
Okay, if I can ask a question to yourself, and again, has there been
Didn't
any
get a question,
objections?
sorry.
Zelina seems to have frozen, Chair. Not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do at your end, Sharon? Are you back in, Zelina?
Froze. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Okay, just from myself, Zelina. Again, there's been no objections from.
Yeah. There's been
No,
no-
we've lost her, Chair.
Yeah.
Whether we adjourn and she goes out and enters again, maybe
Yeah.
that might help.
Okay. I'll try it.
Live stream, will you just pause while... thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for giving us that time. Unfortunately, we did lose Zelina for a period of time, and it's only appropriate to wait till she comes back online. I think, Deb, your question may well have got lost with the disruption to Zelina's line. Could you repeat your question again, please, to Zelina?
It was just the one about the takeaways, as to what time would you actually be stopping the serving of the takeaways when everybody's out by?
We'd stop that at 4:30, so everybody would be served and left by 5 o'clock.
Smashing, thank you. Okay, Les, any further questions from yourself? I notice your hands up.
Sorry, I left you last time. No, I've no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a couple of questions from me, Zelina. Again, no objections from any of the businesses across the road or any local residents?
No, none that I've heard about.
Okay, thank you. And I presume you're very confident that taxis will be available within the locality to take the revellers away?
Yeah, we've worked with I've spoken to several taxis, and there's a local firm that's spoken to most of their drivers, and they believe we can sufficient taxis to get people home.
Thank you very much. Just a question now for the police authority. Can you confirm to me that, is antisocial behaviour a factor of alcohol that is readily available through any licensed outlet premises in any locality? Is it a byproduct?
Yeah, I think potentially it is a byproduct. Our major concern for this one is, though, that there's going to be a lot more antisocial behaviour attributed to the alcohol, because everyone's going to be leaving the nightclub later on in the morning, and there's less police then to deal with it.
But could you also confirm as well that, in your experience, that the premises Manhattan's Hollywood Park is a well-managed club with its door staff?
Yeah, I mean, I can't deny the fact that the door staff do assist the police. It is well managed. However, our argument isn't about that. It's about the people leaving the premises who ultimately are getting intoxicated within that premises, then leaving, and then they're intoxicated on the street, at which point the door staff and the premises is shut. That's what's going to be our issue. That there will be an increase in ASB and crime because of it.
Sorry, this is Neil Parker from the police. May I request, if this is upheld as per the last one, that consideration be given to a condition, which we've actually put in our initial submission, for the door staff to remain on duty until 6 a.m. Because obviously anybody who is in that town with the issues outside the premises is purely contributed to that premises and nowhere else. So they should be supporting the dispersal, so staff to be on until 6 as part of the condition.
That's something that the committee can discuss, but that I presume that will be a business matter for the applicant. Anything further from members? Were we happy to move into decision?
Yeah, sorry, Tony. It's just a question I'd like to ask the police. What's your view of the off sales application as part of this?
In relation to the off sales, I'm led to believe that there's been a blanket by the government to allow off sales for the moment. We would have concerns in relation to the off sales, but our main issue will be the 5 a.m. finish. If people are out on the street drinking, then we may have to deal with that under legislation that we've already got. But we would have concerns about the off sales as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I bring in Mr. Paul O'Donnell, please, legal advisor?
Yeah, I think Councillor Hall's just touched on the point I was seeking to clarify in the report, because from the applicant's point of view, I noticed that the application doesn't deal with policies on off sales of alcohol. And from the officer's point of view, I've noticed there's no reference to what other premises in the area are allowing or undertaking off sales of alcohol in the vicinity at the time. And obviously we need to link that into an analysis of the licensing objectives when the members retire to consider the merits of the application. So my first question really would be to Ms. Benson, the licensing officer. In 3.24 of your report on page 132, there's a list of establishments that are permitted to supply alcohol, and then there's a list of licensed establishments that are able to supply late night refreshment. Are any of those late night refreshment organisations supplying alcohol until their licensed hours?
Potentially, yes.
Are you aware of any of them doing so?
Well, not at the moment, obviously, with the current restrictions as well in relation to coronavirus. It's difficult to say what's happening at the moment. So I don't know at the moment whether they are actually offering the off sales until their actual hours, because obviously at the minute they can only do it as a delivery or drive-through service. So I don't know.
Measures till 11 o'clock in the evening that are permitted.
Sorry, say that again.
The temporary measures which the officers just referred to, is that till 11 o'clock in the evening?
It is, yeah, but some places already have off sales, and they will already have off sales potentially till 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. So there will be nothing to prevent them, if they've already got off sales, providing off sales until those hours that are stipulated at 324.
And have those establishments had any conditions applying to that?
Some of them have, yeah. Some of them have had conditions, but it's difficult to say what conditions have been applied without looking at each specific licence.
And to the applicant, Ms. Jones, the question really is this. Your application doesn't contain any policy regarding the process of selling alcohol that can be taken away from your premises with the food. Is there anything you can help the members with explaining how you would propose approaching this?
Off sales we would do with delivery takeaways as sealed containers. At the moment we have a policy: no drinks leave any venue in unsealed containers, and no drinking on the street, which is a bylaw anyway. So we already run that until 4 a.m.
And there are any limits on the amount of alcohol you sell at that time?
In any limits on?
In practical terms, what are you supplying the consumers with?
With a takeaway order, it would be, if they're ordering 2 meals, 2 bottles of beer, or etc.
And you're satisfied that that policy would be applicable if the hours were extended till 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Can I just come in with a question, because the police have raised a suggestion of door staff remaining at the premises for a period later than 5 a.m. Is that something that's workable, Zelina?
At the moment, my door staff remain until 4:30 because there's no police on the street, so they don't go until the area's dispersed of any troublemakers. But I'm not. I heard somebody mention 6 a.m. I mean, if I shut at 5 and there's nobody left in the area at 5:10, then I'm free to let my door staff go home. But on reverse of that, if they're still here at 5:45, they'll still be here at 5:45.
Thank you very much for
Protection
that.
is not only the customers, the staff as well.
Councillor Hall, your hand's up. Do you need to speak? Unmute yourself.
It was just to clarify with Zelina again. So the off-licence sales is purely with takeaway orders, is that correct?
Yeah. You can't just come in and buy some beer and then walk back out again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Members, are we happy to move into decision?
Yeah.
Okay. Sharon, can the members move into decision?
Yeah, can we have
please?
a mover and a seconder if you're going into part 2, please?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Thank you. There's a time again. Once again, I will say that the committee, all representations are considered and we fully bottom the application. Members have concluded their deliberations on this agenda item and the subcommittee is minded to grant the application, subject to condition that there is no food orders after 4:30 AM. Formal notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given to all parties within 5 working days. The time limit for appealing will not commence until a formal notification has been sent to all parties. Thank you for attending on this agenda item. Agenda item 11, I call on the licensing officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. This next report sets out details of an application to vary a premises licence under section 34(1) of the Licensing Act 2003 for Broadway Sports Bar of 45 to 53 Cavendish Street, Barrow. The applicant is Zelina Jones. The application is a subject of 2 valid representations, therefore a hearing is required. The applicant and the party making the representations have been notified of the hearing. Appendix 1 to this report provides details of this application. It is recommended that Licensing Subcommittee determine whether the application, in accordance with the Guide to Licensing Subcommittee Hearings Procedure to vary the licence, should be granted with or without changes or conditions, or refused based on the information in this report and as presented at the hearing. The supply of alcohol, provision of regulated entertainment and the provision of late night refreshment are licensable activities under section 1 of the Licensing Act 2003. Authorisation from the council in its role as a licensing authority is required in order to carry on any of these activities at premises within the borough. The Licensing Act 2003 provides a clear focus on the promotion of 4 statutory objectives which must be addressed when licensing functions are undertaken. The licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Each objective is of equal importance. There are no other statutory licensing objectives, so that the promotion of the 4 objectives is a paramount consideration at all times. Where a premises licence holder wishes to amend the licence, the 2003 Act, in most cases, permits an application to vary to be made rather than requiring a new application for a premises licence. On the 10th of August 2020, under section 34(1) of the Act, an application was made to the Licensing Authority by Zelina Jones in relation to premises Broadway Sports Bar of 45 to 53 Cavendish Street in Barrow. The applicant is seeking to vary their hours for supply of alcohol, recorded music, performances of dance, to add an extra hour Monday to Saturday and an extra 2 hours on Sunday, to vary their licence to add off sales of alcohol, and the opening hours are therefore being updated with some seasonal variations. On page 241 at 310, there is a table which stipulates the current provisions and also what has been requested, and a copy of their existing licence is attached to Appendix 2. Members can only lawfully consider the matters which are being requested as part of the variation application. It is not within the licensing subcommittee's remit to consider their current licence permissions. Borough Council has undertaken a statutory consultation and representations have been received from 2 parties. Section 18.3 of the Act states that where relevant representations are made, the authority must hold a hearing to consider them unless the authority, the applicant and each person who has made representations agree that a hearing is unnecessary. The licensing authority has received relevant representations and therefore has given notice of the hearing to the applicant and those persons who have made relevant representations. There has been no representations from responsible authorities. There has, however, been 2 representations from other parties, which are summarised in the table at 3.22 on page 243. The first representation is from Mr. Simon Crompton, who is part of the Lounge Group, and he has raised concerns around violent incidents, alcohol intoxication after 1:30 AM and alcohol-related problems in the area. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, public safety and prevention of crime and disorder. At Appendix 4 is a representation from Mr. Brian White on behalf of Coastal Cars and the taxi trade, and the concerns raised are around visible disorder, alcohol-related social, domestic and violence, amount of incidents unreported and unseen, the rise in noise, drink and drugs and extended hours could leave the public stranded in town. And this is in relation to licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and prevention of public nuisance. For members' information, below summarises nearby licensed premises and their licensable hours for supply of alcohol on the premises. When considering applications, the Licensing Authority will have regard to the Licensing Act and licensing objectives, government guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, any supporting regulations and the Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must ensure that all licensing decisions have a direct relationship to the promotion of one or more of the licensing objectives. Every application should be considered on its merits, and there must not be a blanket policy to the extent that it is applied so rigidly that an exercise of discretion in each individual case is precluded. Applications must be considered with regard to the principles of fair process and the Human Rights Act. The options available to members are to grant the application to vary the licence for Broadway Sports Bar as applied for, to grant the application to vary the licence for Broadway Sports Bar with no additional conditions and/or changes as deemed appropriate, taking into account Chapter 10 of the statutory guidance, conditions attached to premises licence and club premises certificates, or they can refuse the application to vary the licence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Could I now ask the applicant for their representations, Zelina Jones? Can you unmute yourself, Zelina, please? Are you there, Zelina? Can you unmute yourself? Oh, just try it again, Zelina. There might be a delay in unmuting. Can you try and unmute again, Zelina? We can't unmute at our end, Sharon, can we?
I'm trying to as well, and I don't.
Zelina, that's it. Don't touch anything. Away you go.
Sorry about that.
Stay unmuted as well if you want, Zelina. That's fine for the
Okay.
rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. With regards to Broadway, we applied for the 4 o'clock to bring it in line with the other premises we've got and to allow us to announce Manhattans if we got the 5 o'clock. At 3:15, we've got DJs down there to announce that they need to make last entry into Manhattans because the doors shut at 3:30. And we also feel that it enables people to have somewhere at 3 o'clock they were leaving en masse, causing a problem on the street. By 4 o'clock, they've dribbled out in a more easier to disperse manner. There's no objections from any residents or any local businesses on this street, as far as I'm aware, and the police didn't object to Broadway either. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zelina. Okay, could I ask the police authority for their representation, please?
The police didn't actually put any representations in against this one. Obviously, because if it was just bringing it in line with 4 o'clock where the other places were, it would actually have no difference in the nighttime economy, antisocial behaviour or police staffing levels.
Thank you very much, sir. Public representations. Mr. Simon Crompton from the Lounge Group. He's left the meeting. Mr. Edward White has left the meeting, so we'll move on from that. Mr. Brian White.
It's not in attendance, Chair.
Not in attendance, okay. So no public representations there. Can I ask the members if they have any questions? Councillor Hall.
It's just, Zelina, it's around the off sales. There's no current provision for off sales, but you're applying for off sales.
No.
Up till
The
3.
only off sales we applied for were the Hollywood takeaway.
Right, so, well, well, sorry. Right, okay, that's fine. It's on in the tabulated 3 and 310. That was on.
Chair, in the application on page 261, the applicant has indicated that they wish for both on and off sales.
Yes. Seen that. Thank you. Any further questions from members? Members, are we happy to move into decision?
Yep.
Okay, could I have a recommendation to move into part 2, please?
I'll recommend that, Tony.
Second it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much, everybody, for giving us the time to go through the application. Members have concluded their deliberations on this agenda item, and the subcommittee is minded to grant the application. Formal notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given to all parties within 5 working days. The time limit for appealing will not commence until the formal notification has been sent to the parties. Thanks everybody for attending today's business. It's been a long one. Safe journey home. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.